Hi, and welcome to Bridging the Gap. Ian Hansen in, along with intuitive medium and spiritual advisor Brenda Burgett. On this edition of the program, we are going to be bridging the gap, Brenda, between animals and humans. And this is something that you do quite frequently in your practice, if you can call it that, as an intuitive.
Exactly. It's been something that's been so close to me for so long, and I actually do probably more animals, work with more animals than I do with people.
And in some ways you enjoy that.
I love it.
At least in a different way.
When you're working with animals, their master or their owners are a huge part of it, so you're doing both.
And the thought that we could communicate with animals, Brenda, to some might seem off base, I suppose, because I know that in certain teachings or in certain thought patterns, animals aren't the same as humans. They're not on the same level as they are spiritually. There's the thought that animals do have feelings, that they do have souls. I've run into people who have thought neither. So animals on this rung of existence, as far as these vessels we run around in, what do they occupy?
They have a soul, they have a spirit, they hold their own space on earth, and they are who they are, like we are who we are.
And there's a thought, I know, Brenda, that at least in the Eastern philosophies, that you can reincarnate as animals, and that's sort of your climb through the evolutionary ladder in some regards. It goes deeper than that, and you can do your own research into it. But the thought is that you could be a rat in the next lifetime, or perhaps an eagle in the next lifetime, or that you were in a previous one. As far as your knowledge of spirituality, where does that fit in? Is that accurate to your recollection? Or?
Well, there are actually some rats who are still human rats.
Hey, Vinny, let's throw her over the bridge. The heck of this gap stuff. I'm a rat, remember?
What I've read so much on this, and I like what God says in Conversations with God with Neil Donald Walsh. And Neil said, are we going to come back as a bug or whatever? And he said, well, I tend to think that we are evolving, and maybe that isn't really an evolution. Maybe once we get where we're at in the human form, we evolve as another human. I don't know. I'll let you know when I get there.
Okay, so again, Brenda doesn't have the answers to all of life's or the
No.
universe's questions, but through, again, her intuitive abilities, some of them become a little bit more clear than others.
We'll give you our version of it, my version and your version, and then everybody can make up their own mind.
And that's exactly what this program is designed to do anyway, is for you to empower yourself and make up your own mind about all of these things we talk about.
Exactly.
We're just sharing some ideas, again, from perhaps a different side of things or a perspective that Brenda right now is still considered to be substream, but very soon, we believe, will be a lot more mainstream.
Mainstream, very much mainstream in a lot of different parts of the country and different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm going to act like I'm mainstream anyway. How about you?
I've never acted mainstream in my life, and I'm not about to start now, so I'll rue the day.
We'll do a cut above mainstream.
We'll do a cut above mainstream,
I
that
forgot.
works. So.
Jason, what are you going to do with this guy?
All that Aquarius in my chart. I just have to be different.
Yes.
It's hell on my teachers, and now all the bosses I've ever had too. So Taxman doesn't like it too much either, but let's leave them alone. Brenda, as far as animals and souls, let's go back to that, since again, we're going to have animals here, by the way, too, at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
You have 4 cute little dogs yourself.
Little yappers.
I have a dog and cat at home. Jason, our man behind the scenes, what do you have at home? 2 kids? That's enough, right? So, any animals, Jason? 1? What is it? You can be heard on these tapes.
A dog.
A dog. He said, was that the voice? And he said, a dog. Which is God backwards, by the way. So there it was, a dog. Nice. So, what kind of dog is it?
It's a mix of a lab and I don't know, just a mix of a lab and something else.
It's a Labino?
It's a Labino.
It's an Idobrador?
It's a hunting dog and a traveling man.
There you go.
Okay, so again, everyone in the room that's a human has an animal in their life right now, or several animals, and many people really do ascribe to them, Brenda. They attach to them, they love them as children. Again, no joking aside, some people go a little far with that, perhaps you could say. Others, and I have one in the family, they don't really identify with animals, and they kick them around and abuse them and club baby seals and use the fur. So what about the human perception of animals, Brenda? How does that come about in all of us? Are we born with that, or do we learn it?
I think probably we come with it, and if you're going to abuse an animal, I believe you'll abuse a person. And I believe that stems from your own idea of who you are and what you are, your self-worth. If you know that we're all energy, even the animals, and you're abusing another animal or an animal, then I think you're clubbing yourself over the head.
All right, and animals, Brenda, we've talked about how humans see animals, and again the thought that they have souls, and I would agree with that, certainly. If you don't, again, that works for you, that's fine, but we're in agreement that animals certainly do have something harmonious inside of them, and I would argue that's in every single thing in the universe.
Everything, plants,
not just
everything.
Plants and things we can, as in biological terms, say is alive. Everything, rocks, dirt, black matter. They got to figure out what that is too, so we can get some and have a scoop right here on stage one time. It'd probably fall right through the floor.
Okay.
But what about the animal's perspective? Because that is a little different scenario.
The animals, when I first realized that I was hearing an animal talk to me, it was like a voice, my own voice, saying, she's mistreating me because of whatever this horse had to say, and there was a horse. I just saw a horse that was terminal tonight, and the interesting thing about that is they don't worry about dying. I don't think I worry about dying. I think I have evolved to that human animal part where dying is just changing forms, and I'm looking forward to it more days, some days more than others.
Certainly, I know there are days more than others that you might think that.
But this horse was a beautiful horse, has cancer. I saw the cancer in 3 or 4 different places, and the horse was 28 years old. And the owner said, what does he want? How do I make him happy? What can I do for him? Well, number one, go back to your car and bring his treats to him. Because he was used to a treat. Here I was. It's like, what are you doing here? So he turns his bottom to me. He's tied up in this corral, and he starts pawing with his leg, and I immediately saw where there was a cancer and that he was in pain. And normally, if there is nothing wrong with the horse physically, that's a sign of disrespect.
Okay.
You know, it's like, who are you? You're dealing with the end of me that you don't get to see my face.
So,
Yeah.
again, pardon all of the viewers out there who are not used to this kind of language. Literally a horse's ass.
Horse's ass.
Okay, so that may be where the term comes from, at least in the Wuji business too.
Might be.
Might be.
Might be, but
Okay.
the horse was, after he got calmed down, we ran the energy through him, she was saying, ask him what he wants. Well, he doesn't want to be ridden because it hurts. And she was going to do some light trail rides, and I don't tell people what to do, but I did not see that as being an enjoyable thing. What does he want? He wants to eat. He wants his treats, and he wants them now. He wants her to show up when he's supposed to. He doesn't want his schedule messed with. And then when he's ready to go, he's gone.
Simple enough.
Simple enough. Another thing with a horse that I saw, the owner was a good friend of mine, said she had to put her horse down. He was very old, and we were there, and I was crying, she was crying, the vet was coming, and all this. And the horse is standing over in the corral, and he said, I'm thirsty. And I said, you know, he needs a drink. And she said, now he needs a drink? Doesn't he know what's going to happen? He said, this is no big deal to him. He's thirsty. Give him a drink of water. So he drank his water. Went through the whole process. The vet came, did what I know vets don't like doing this any more than we like seeing him leave. But it was a very humane thing to do at this time. And I turned my back because I'm not happy to watch anything that large or small hit the ground and be gone. Mm-hmm. So I hear this whinnying in my, but it wasn't a painful whinny, it wasn't anything. Then I hear hoof, and then I see in my mind eye this beautiful brown horse, not as he was when he was dying or old, but as he must have looked at a time when I hadn't seen him younger. And he was swishing his tail and kicking up his legs, and he was running off into the pasture.
Wow.
It was phenomenal. Changing forms. He was ready to go. We were still bawling our eyes out. Everything had to be done. He wasn't upset at all. It was like, I'm out of here.
And we'll deal with where he may have galloped off to on future editions of Bridging the Gap. But today, again, with Brenda Burgett, intuitive medium, spiritual advisor, and yours truly, Ian Hansen, we're exploring the relationship between animals and humans, and not the one that we can easily identify to say that you're the master of your dog at home, or that I raise German shepherds and they do the course for me, or I'm into the equestrian or something. Those are easily things. We're talking about things that are under the surface here,
Exactly.
I suppose, Brenda. And I have to say, and since we just told a sad story, let's break through some of that. That sounds a lot like, and I'm doing this for a reason too, by the way, so bear with me. That sounds a lot like some of the people that you actually have readings with. You hear the same things. What do you want? Well, I want to be fed on time, I want my treats, and I want to be ridden every so often, especially those people you see in Vegas. I mean, they're just like
Exactly,
that.
that's
Really,
it.
there's a lot that could be said.
Basic human things. The interesting thing is I worked a lot with women and their horses. They'll live in a single wide. Their horse has this expensive trailer and a good-looking Ford 450 truck, diesel. and we've got this.
Always
thing
a
going
diesel.
on. Yeah, always.
Oh, of course, they're always a
It
diesel.
has to be. I don't know. Maybe not. But they say they have what I call this black beauty thinking. They see themselves with their hair long, regardless of whether it's short or not, flying off into the sunset on this beautiful black horse, which can be any color that it happens to be. And they are one with their horse. This is my soulmate. We are connected. This is so beautiful. And the horse is going, God, wish she'd quit kicking me. You know, okay, I'm running. Leave me alone. She's happy. When do I get back and get my treats? This is fun. I like to run, but I'm tired now. Like a 5-year-old boy. Not a girl, a boy. You don't say to a 5-year-old boy, darling, would you like to eat this wonderfully prepared meal that I have for you? It's so good for you and make you feel so good. You say, here's your lunch. Eat if you want the kid to eat. Not all boys, of course. So with a horse, it's like she's on this horse, she's getting this wonderful feeling, and that's okay, whatever works for you. But the horse is not black beauty. The horse is a white horse that's 20 years old, and they're doing this thing together. It's a beautiful bond, but the horse sees it one way and the woman another. If you want him to be your soulmate, which is a word I'm not crazy about.
Neither one of us probably are, actually.
It works for you. But what can I do to make my horse comfortable? Scratch him where you know he likes to be rubbed. Bring his treats to him. Feed him on time. Treat him with respect. That's what he wants. He will give for you, or she will nuzzle you, allow you to ride them, and be happy to see you. That's a horse.
Personalities of all animals are so vastly different. I know I have a dog at home, Pembroke Welsh Corgi, actually, and I was warned about those things, but I love my dog.
Oh, it's a beautiful little dog.
And, you know, her and I certainly identify with each other a little bit better because she is just like me, it seems like. She's always
Often.
playing jokes and tricks, and she's aloof, and I don't want to snuggle and love you right now, I want to play. And so that's very much like me. She has her tender side, but my wife has a harder time dealing with her, and that's why she's my dog more often than not, especially when she misbehaves, or what could be called misbehaviors, because my wife wants a sweet, smushy, cuddly, I need you kind of animal, and we don't have that right now. So we're looking for one. If you know of any, please send a line. You can do it through our website. That would be bridgingthegap.com, or of course, is it bridgingthegaptv.com, Jason? Bridgingthegaptv.com, I'm sorry, and then we have the Bridging the Gap on TV, which is on YouTube. Had to get that because of the guy in Ghana. Hello, guy in Ghana. We hope it's all going very well. So, are you Ghana yet? Because we'd really like that name. That would be nice. I had to use that now.
That's
So.
very good.
Anyway, animals, they link up with people in some way. There's a connection. If you've ever gone to the Humane Society and picked out a dog or a cat, you're searching maybe more for a connection than you realize. But sometimes, Brenda, we have a tendency to pick what's cute or soft or sweet or bold and wonderful and prideful, and they're not a good match for us. We do the same thing with people who we choose as friends, dare I say mates?
Mates, absolutely, absolutely. My daughter picks the one that needs her the most. All the way through her life. Everything. And so she has some challenging animals. But she picked them out. And if they eat her couch...
The gap between the couch and it being eaten is, again, we'll explore that on a future episode of the program.
There's
Because
definitely reasons
yeah,
for
that has happened to my sister, actually. She has had a dog that has all... And I'm telling you, that was... You say eat the couch, you think, well, the cushions were wrapped up. No, there was some beavering going on, too.
You've seen my couch.
I have seen your couch, that's
We had to
true.
wait till the baby was 3, and now we can get a new couch. But yes, that will happen. When you are looking for something to make you feel better, there is nothing like an animal. There is nothing like an animal. I don't care if you like a lizard, that's okay with me. Whatever it is.
Yeah, they're cool. I never really saw the
Giraffe, whatever.
connection you could forage with a reptile. They're old.
Yeah.
That's what's weird, because I've paddled through the mangroves of Florida before, and the gators are just sitting there waiting for lunch, and they don't bother humans, of course, but they kind of freak me out because they have been here a long time. They're old. They were here, and they have that aura about them that, oh, you stupid mammals, what are you doing here? You know, I mean, this place was ours for a long time, but anyway. So we do have a tendency, I suppose, as we talked about already, Brenda, to draw to what it is that we need in an animal. Maybe they pick us in certain ways. Those are the neatest stories, because I've taken in cats that have holed up outside for several days, and it's like, all right, come on in. I know I'm sunk at that point, so.
That's my mom's story. An animal will come to you, and she has 5 cats.
And you love them all.
I adore
Show them the
her.
scar. Will you show them the scar that the one just produced? Or?
No, we'll keep it.
Can we get a close-up on that?
We love the cat.
Shredded her right arm badly, I must say, the other day. Just made jerky out of it, too. So.
Once
It flung itself at you? Was that? My goodness, okay.
Well, I was in his chair, as my mother pointed out,
Wonderful.
and he, of course, didn't intend to do it, and I'm sure he didn't. But there are some expectations.
I saw the
have
reservation
from
in her
animals.
eyes. So.
Well, I have rules with my animals, and if you have no rules, then there will be no rules, and they do what they want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Very true. All right, I sense a part 2 coming once again, potentially, but maybe we'll explore it down the road. A couple more points we want to get to, though, in bridging the gap between animals and people. Brenda, we talked about all these differences, I suppose, and all these similarities with animals and people in mind. So what can folks, meaning human folks, learn from animals? What is it that we're supposed to be watching that we can take away from their experiences here to help enlighten us, and maybe even vice versa, to get back to them? Or do they need that?
Do people need it, or do animals?
Do animals need that? It was a two-fisted
Yes,
question, but we can deal with
They do.
both.
Animals do want, certain animals want to be loved, and they will definitely connect with you on their level. And I need animals because they provide comfort for me, and I can't imagine not having one around. But I certainly don't own my animals. They are their own people. And I guess the neatest thing that you can learn is, when you stop to think, why have I got this animal? What is this animal doing for me? And when their expectations are live and let live, I take what you have to give. This is what I want from you, and I understand what you want from me. It's a wonderful way to live with everybody. It's
Yeah.
a good balance. Animals provide a balance, or they don't. There's no balance in them, and there's usually better. Also, when I work with an animal of any kind, the owner, manager, whatever you want to call them, there are some people that manage horses, are just in need, as much in need of a reading as these animals are. So when you call me or I do an animal, I work with animals, I usually say, do you want the full meal deal, or you just want me to give you what you want to hear with this animal? And there's always a message there for people.
Yeah. She says full meal deal, and I keep thinking that I've always wanted to send that idea to Richard Simmons because he needs deal a full meal deal, I think, to reincarnate that whole product. And we love you, Richard, by the way, too. His story's awesome. I mean that in the most sincerest way. Brenda, also comes to mind that, you know, as far as animals are concerned and their place in our world, let me throw this bone out there, too. Maybe it's why we've gotten a bit off track, no pun intended, by the way. Well, pun fully intended with the bone, I guess, but maybe that's why we've gotten off track a little bit as a society, and this is really for landlords, I guess, or people who would be in control of this sort of thing, but we know dogs, cats can be messy, heck, on carpet if you rent places and such, but think about opening your heart and allowing at least one to your tenants, because it can make the biggest difference in a person's life. I would say if you're single, there is nothing like having a dog that is always so glad to see you when you come home if you don't have a spouse or a significant other waiting there at that time to do that, if that's an empty space in your life. And animals fulfill that. The one that really gets me, I know, and yes, there's family involved here, is when there's a whole bunch of cats running around one day and they run the house and it's great, and then a baby shows up and the cats are all taken to the pound and rounded up or something, and that's horrible because they don't deserve that. But again, that illustrates in, I think, a pretty large way that they fill that void until maybe something else shows up of the human capacity.
They do, and you know, that even happens to children. You have one child and a new one comes along, the old ones needs to be put outside on the front steps.
Baby of 3, don't I know that?
I know.
I replaced them both.
I did that with my kids, and when the minute the next one came on, they were out of here.
And we got one behind the camera that's thinking about having a third. Similar scenario vis-a-vis me. We're telling him don't do it. So I want you to send in your cards and letters to Jay. We'll say Shuffy. How's that? Send it to Shuffy and say, Shuffy, no more babies. He has enough. He's got 2 already in there. Norse gods. So
I know that, but you know he's got to be a wonderful father because he's a wonderful person.
He claims to be a lot harder on those kids than he is, I think. Well, you and I both know that. You know for sure. I think I know. But
You know.
Brenda, one last thing here, and again, I sense a part 2, 3, 4. We could go on and on with animal communication, and we'll be tackling that subject in a lot of different ways coming up on Bridging the Gap in future episodes, including having live animals right here so that you can see what it is that Brenda does in that way. But I'm wondering, too, just so folks walk away from this and have a distinct separation between, we've talked so much about domesticated animals, what about their separation between wild animals? Because I think we would naturally identify differently with a Pomeranian dog or a teacup Chihuahua than we would with a boa constrictor, although both are kept as pets, and you've seen some of the craziest animals kept as pets. But what about the separation between the call of the wild and the ones that are at home?
The separation, of course, is obvious. You're not going to bring some of these animals into your home, but that you appreciation for who they are and what they are. Beautiful elk. There's nothing as pretty, unless it's running across the road or going across the path. Just the appreciation for what it is and its spot, its place in this world. We would take the domesticated animals and they work with us most of the time. But we also should have an appreciation for who they are. You know, I'm not saying don't dress this little cute dog up in a dress. And if the dog likes it, go for it. But, you know, we show respect to every human and animal and plant that we run into, and that's where it all ties in, is respecting who they are and what they have to get us.
We talked about that.
To give them.
Yeah, on a recent edition, I know, of Bridging the Gap, may have been the last one we did, about your right to be here, and I think some people feel like that's compromised, like it's bad to be human and, you know, be here and using resources and existing. And we absolutely talked about you have an absolute right to be here in this vessel at this time, but remember that everything else that's around you does too, and so that's where it ties in as far as the animals
Total
are concerned.
respect for everything.
So with that being said, Brenda, if we were to ask you to do a reading on a wild boar, on a mako shark, on a giraffe, on an eye, look them up, by the way, those are cool creatures, or a slow loris, or something that's in the wild, are we going to be able to get anything, or is it just purely primal, unlike the relationship we have with the domesticated ones?
I've never done
You've never done it?
I had
Wow.
one time birds, eagles.
Eagles?
Eagles.
Wow, okay.
I love birds.
Oh, yeah.
And this wonderful hawk, I guess it was, flew over, and it was like bringing me hope and peace, and all I could do was say thank you. I don't know, I don't understand all of it, but it was total appreciation for that. We were on a mountain in Arizona, and here comes this beautiful hawk, and vast areas. It didn't have to come over us, and if I were him, I wouldn't have bothered. But here he goes, and it's just like this total feeling of peace and being one with where we were and who we were, and as well as the hawk.
Now we're going to go deeper here for just a second too, after you said that, because that's such a poignant statement. It reminds me of something that I saw as well. I mean, we have, where we hail from, where we're doing this program from, we have the blessing of having a lot of those wonderful birds here. We have giant bald eagle populations and all kinds of wonderful raptors and things like that. So we get graced with that. If you'll go look for it every so often, they are around. Brenda, it's hard to imagine, with as stuffy and money-hungry as our founding fathers have been made, that they would actually have an intuitive side, but they absolutely did.
They certainly did.
And there's no question in my mind as to why they selected the eagle, and really so many different nations or groups of people have selected the eagle as their symbol of just what you described, freedom and a sense of hope, because you do get that from them when they soar over. And it's the other side of that that leads me to really say that, and that is, I went to a raptor rehabilitation exhibit that was in Florida. It's around Homosassa Springs, by the way, which is an awesome city, and if you ever get the chance, you got to eat at the Margarita Grill. That's a plug for them. That's the greatest place on earth to get a fish. It's this big and smothered, and the service is great. Anyway, there's this wonderful park there where they rehab animals, everything from manatees to alligators, and they have a raptor exhibit there.
Wow.
I have to say, the vibration that I got from the owls, and in particular the eagles and the hawks who were missing legs or had had wings entangled so badly they would never fly again. There was an owl that had an eye missing. It was, why are you letting me survive? It really was. I know that that's going to make some people mad, but they almost have a duty or a job, it seemed like, and that has been compromised in this cage being on display for people. Now, I'm not saying the ones that can fully fly at the zoo exhibits and stuff, they, I think, enjoy that. But it was sad, Brenda. Was I getting something you would feel similar vibrations to?
I wouldn't have gone in the first place, because it gets right back to that death. Death is such a fearful thing for so many people. We have to save it at every possible cost so they can hop around on one leg. You know, my opinion, just an opinion, is when it's time to go, it's time to go. If you see, you know, if you can save it, it can get turned loose and live a semi-normal life, absolutely. But somebody will hop around on one leg. I have a close family member who thinks letting something live well beyond the time it should be here is a good thing. I never argue with her because she's a very interesting, grouchy woman. But this animal in particular is sick, really sick. It's made all of her other animals sick. And it's walking around being very hard to live with. So what would I do in a situation like that? I do what I do and she does what she does. It's not a bad thing to die. It's not a bad thing to let it go. I have so many phone calls. One year I felt like the Dr. Kevorkian of the animal world. I got a call when I was in Hawaii. My cat is doing this, 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 and this. What is the cat saying to me? And I said, let it go. Let it go. Well, do you have it euthanized? You let it die by itself. that's your choice. I'm never going to tell you what to do.
That's a tough one, and I've been there, and I know a lot of our viewers and listeners have probably been there before too.
I
But
have no problem with having an animal put to sleep.
yeah, well, I've let some ride it on out until the end, and again, there is no right answer
There's no
there.
right or wrong.
It's
with
just, it really is your choice, because at that point, it is in your hands. Now, up in the Pacific Northwest, I know, and maybe in some other countries, they've legalized the ability to pull the plug on humans if the circumstances meet a certain criteria, but we won't get into that on this edition.
We're not going to touch that.
Yeah, it's just, in the animal world, it's something that will be up to you as the person who looks after them.
Exactly.
You're in charge of them as far as that's concerned.
Do
too,
whatever
so.
works for you.
And one last thing, because I know we're getting the from Shuffy back there, so think of it in human terms, Brenda, because think of those wonderful actors, and George Burns immediately pops to mind as far as somebody who lived to be almost 100 years old. He died at 99, shortly before his 100th birthday, and he was sharp and out there every single day, and we remember the old George Burns. A lot of us do anyway.
Amazing man.
Elvis Presley, James Dean. James Dean died very young, Blaze of Glory, Portia Spider. Everyone remembers him, as Rebel Without a Cause. He was young, and that's the legacy he carries forward. Elvis is remembered for a lot of great things, but his demise was not all that wonderful, and some people do remember how he was in his final days. So I'm using famous people as maybe a way to think about what we just described as far as our animal friends are concerned, too. What is dignified as far as leaving this world, and our approach to death and our thoughts about death, Brenda, we really do, I think, need an evolution there. We need to change them. We need to remember what they used to be, because our thoughts about death in the Western civilized world in the 21st century are very, very different than they used to be. Death was an honor. It was a privilege in many ways. You lived, and you lived well while you lived. But death was not a bad thing. And I think, unfortunately, it's become a bad thing because there's a fear, a disconnect to the other side.
I'm going to really cop out on this one. It's a long answer.
We're going to end the show with a cop-out.
A cop out. We are energy. Energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. So we just change forms. So does everything else. I believe we all have a contract. Elvis Presley had a contract, Jimmy Dean had a contract, and George Burns had a contract. No question about it. They did exactly what they came here to do, and then they were gone.
And then James Dean was reincarnated as a sausage king because now he has his own line.
Jimmy
so,
Dean.
Jimmy
Ah,
Dean,
see,
that's
there you
exactly
are.
right. So actually I don't, probably somebody different. Or, Brenda, it's been fascinating as always chatting about animals, bridging the gap between them and humans. We'll do this again. We're going to talk about animals a lot and again have examples of animals. I think it's about time that we made Brenda Burgett, after we see what this realm is all about, maybe doing a reading for my dog or your dog
Sure.
or Shuffy's dog back there. Maybe we can actually get you to do a reading on a wild animal of some kind or one that isn't domesticated, just to see perhaps what you get. I can't believe you've never done that before.
I did have a zebra that I worked with.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. But they can be partially domesticated. I
This
know.
was partially domesticated, and I get, when I see a bird or I see something out of here, I get things, but nobody's asking questions. They're just being a bear. That's who they are. They're just being an eagle or an elk. So what's to read? They are who they are.
And that, I think, is what there is to learn, Brenda, at the end of all this. It's just while they're being a bear, while they're being an eagle, while they're being a falcon, you just be you. And I know in human terms, you have a chance to make a lot more choices, but that's the whole idea. That is what you can learn from
That
them.
would be remembering who you came here to be.
Exactly. And we hope that we've helped you do that on this edition of Bridging the Gap. Brenda Burgett is with us as always, intuitive medium, spiritual advisor, and I'm Ian Hansen. Remember, you can see every episode of Bridging the Gap on TV at bridgingthegaptv.com or Bridging the Gap on TV on YouTube. Sorry, we had to separate the two. We're contacting the guy in Ghana now. Shuffy's on that actually for us, and we're going to see if we can just slide in there and take that over. You can also go to bridgingthegapwithbrenda.com. It's the same website as the one that I mentioned just a moment ago to you. And we've got a lot more things going on, including some radio programs you can check out and some other things that are on the way too. So Brenda, this was fun as always.
It was great fun.
Personal readings you're about to say, those are available through Brenda's work.
Absolutely, animals and people, and we will be doing another improv very soon.
And get your questions in. We typically get questions to you on the program, but we didn't do any today. Again, a big subject, animal communication, bridging the gap between humans and animals. We'll get to questions on the next edition of Bridging the Gap. And we'll see you for that in just a little while from right now. Again, this is Brenda Burgett. I'm Ian Hansen. Until we talk again, enjoy your existence.